Hey everyone, this is my analysis of terracotta neck amphora. This piece measures 18.5 inches tall, has a diameter of 9/3/8 of an inch. It was made between 460 and 450 BCE from terracotta. It was made by the Neobid painter, who was an ancient Athenian vase painter who has been attributed to many works over the years, and this piece is currently on display at the Met Fifth Avenue in New York. First glance here, despite the very ornate presentation and the very fancy name, this is just a jar. So it's possible it was used to store like dry goods or liquid. I would assume by the imagery on the vase, maybe it was for wine or for some sort of other drink, but we'll get to that in a moment. So between 460 and 450 BCE in Greek culture, this was a few years after they defeated the Persians. So as a result of that victory, Athens and the rest of Greece started to become a very wealthy society. Around this time was also known as the classical period, in which arts were flourishing and they were becoming more complex and more ornate. And I think this piece sort of exemplifies all those qualities. This piece was done in the red figure style, and essentially what that means is the entire piece is painted black, with the exception of the detailing and the main images, of course, but it was painted black, and then everything else was left untouched. And so that's just let's get a closer look. So you can see that's just the color of the fire terracotta there showing through. So it creates sort of an interesting contrast with like the matte black, so to speak, and then you have like the marbling, just like the natural marbling of how the terracotta looks. And so this was a very common style at the time. We have two different images here. This first side depicts the Greek god Dionysus with his, I believe it's pronounced Maenads, which are the followers of Dionysus. And then on the other side, we have some sort of nobleman here, and then these two women who are possibly be like handmaidens or some members of the royal court or something. And we will get into each of these images in more detail in a moment. So let's start back here. So we can see just on the other side as well, this ornate detailing around the rim of the jar here. And the same thing here, they have this nice like sort of almost flowery, fleur-de-lis, filigree sort of detailing here, and it's just mirrored on the other side, you can see. In the center here we have the Greek god Dionysus, and so he was the god of wine and festivity. And so the description here, it says that this follower here, she has a pitcher of wine, and so we can assume that she's poured the wine, he's going to, if not already, poured the wine into his little chalice here. I believe this is the altar of Dionysus, so that's probably where his little chalice was before. We have these, which I can't really tell what they are. I'm going to assume they're laurel branches. I just want to point out, although it's mostly just line work and it's pretty simple, we can see just how the detailing on the robe is meant to look very flowy. Same with the followers here. And I think it's interesting, this style of imagery where it's almost like a photographic negative, for lack of a better explanation. So I think that's quite interesting. I didn't know that that was a thing until I researched this piece. So this piece has a very interesting shape to it. Of course, it was all handmade, but we can see the sort of larger rim here where you would put stuff in or pour stuff out. And we can see the handles here look very strong. Then it goes into the large body of it where all this stuff would be held. And then we have this sort of pedestal on the bottom to support it. So now let's go to the other side. So like I mentioned before, same sort of thematic details going on here around the top and around the bottom as well. So here we have this, I'm assuming is a nobleman, because he's not named as anyone specific in the description. So some sort of nobleman here, but you can see how the artist wanted to make him look very regal. Similar to the robes with Dionysus, how they're sort of simply detailed, but they're made to look very ornate. But what I think is interesting is you can see the two images on the different sides of this jar. They're very similar. It's like a symmetric asymmetry, so to speak. So this woman here, similar to the other side, she looks like she's pouring something out, probably wine. But again, you can make out the simple but distinct detailing on the faces, on the hair, on their little accessories that the figures are wearing. So overall, I think this is a really interesting piece. I've not really looked at many pieces of Greek art before. I hope this was entertaining and informative, and thank you for listening.